Hello and welcome to episode 2 of The Clutch Kick, our little podcast that myself, Greg Merriman, and my co-host, I'm hoping he's on that side of me.
Nah, other side.
Oh, other side of me this week.
No, it's always been that side.
Oh, you've always been on that side.
Yeah,
You've always
the
been
mirror.
But,
It's always do
yeah.
a high five.
Oh, that's a high five. Introduce yourself. Keep going. We're going with this one.
Hi, so I'm EG. I'm from Canberra as opposed to Sydney. But so I probably don't need to explain too much, do I?
Nah, because hopefully they will have watched episode 1 before they get to this one. Well, we hope. We can hope.
So yeah, I'm relatively. I have a more history than Greg does, but I'm not the sort of the initial guys in Australia. So they were a few years ahead of me, maybe 5 or 6 years ahead of me before I started getting into it.
All right. So on the last episode, we spoke heavily about DCA, and we didn't talk about who judge number 3 for the season was, as we weren't sure if it was released. But within minutes, literally minutes of us finishing that last cast, even though it's going to be up a little bit delayed, just because we've been working on some things in the background, fellow, what do you call him, a Canberranite, Steve
Barron. It's a Cam Barron.
yeah, but that sounds weird. I don't know, Canberranite.
No, it's Cam Barron. That's
Okay.
That's what they call down here.
Oh, okay. Fellow Canberran for EG, Steve Pembry has been announced as judge number 3 for the season. I know he was copping a bit of flack from Luke Online, who would prefer to see him in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
But as a
driver, much better.
But as a broke ass, 30, I think around 30-year-old, just over 30-year-old.
Same as me.
Yeah, now uni student. I think it's good to have him involved. I called him on board last year for Super Drift, as well as EG and a few other guys. So, do you think it's going to favour the Canberra guys now that there's 2 of you and an Irish Victorian on the judging panel?
Nah, no way, because Steve's so much harder on friends. So if you're expecting a free ride with him, then no, you're not looking good for that.
Well, I shouldn't have put my hand up to look after accommodation for you two, I guess.
Steve, for me, I think I've already told you need to do a few things before you.
I know, but can't I sit behind my keyboard and get good?
I'm gonna say you can, but you're gonna need some real life experience.
That sucks. But I think for the people who don't know Steve, I remember Steve from when I used to go out and watch Oran Park, and one of, I guess, my fondest memories of Steve is watching him take out the last ever Oran Park Drift series. I think he was probably one of the more consistent guys in that. I don't know, what year was that? 07, 08?
No, are you sure? It's not the BBM Cup?
Yeah, BBM Cup.
That's the one he won. That's 2008, I think.
Yeah, maybe 2008. It wasn't any later than that, because then I was... No, it might have been...
7.
Or maybe 07. Maybe 07, because I feel like I had started doing a lot more travel with skating by sort of 08, 09, so...
No, I thought
they would have been.
Was the Toyo New South Wales series, I thought, and 08 was the BBM Cup. And
I think it was earlier. Yeah, BBM Cup was the last, but I think, somebody will probably end up correcting us on a post somewhere. But I'm pretty confident in saying that was the last ever comp out of, other than that one round of Drift Australia that was held on the South Circuit there in 2009. I'm pretty sure that was the last ever full in-house competition that was run there, and I think Steve was against some Drift Australia guys, a whole bunch of locals. I think all you guys were, and you were one of them, driving up from the ACT together to...
No, I didn't make the BBM Cups because they were on a Friday.
I knew you'd done Toyo the year before.
No, I'm pretty sure Yeah, it must have been 2007 because I can't get time. Like, I was in a job where I couldn't get time off work.
Yeah.
In
Yeah,
2008,
it
I
felt really
changed
early.
jobs. Yeah, in 2008, I changed jobs, and the job was a lot more flexible. So it must be in '07 because that job really sucked, and I couldn't get
Yeah.
time off. So there's no way I could go on a Friday night. There's absolutely no way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it must be in '07, and
Yeah,
when
I
he
think that
got
was the
got-
last one.
yeah, and he went up with there's a whole bunch of other guys who could get time off. And I think that was the very last one, he blew a head gasket and he was just driving the whole night with a blown head gasket.
Yeah, and then he laid a massive burnout too after he was announced as winner of that series. I remember him kept saying over the commentary that he had blown the head gasket, and then the burnout that he laid was just enormous. But I think at that stage he knew the motor was done. So if it puts everything out the block, it doesn't really matter at that stage, I guess.
No, it's really not uncommon for him to blow up.
And I guess
just so many.
I guess
I was behind him one time at Oran Park and the engine seized in front of me.
Oh, Jesus Christ, that does not surprise me. And I guess other notable things for Steve would be, and I'm sure we'll probably try and get him on one of these episodes. He'd probably be more than happy to throw his insight. I worked for Drift Battle magazine when it was around, even during the rehash. I think he helped with that.
No,
right?
It's only the rehash.
So that he was part of?
Not the original. So the original was pretty much just Ben Ellis.
Yeah.
Is that right? And then, he came back, tried to push it through. And we sent, a whole bunch of us sent him photos. And I think some guys wrote articles as well, a couple of guys. And that kind of was the one and only magazine that we could get out of that. And then the rest of them were, what's it called, tear sheets or something like that. I don't know.
On digital
terms. So they'd pick articles out of other magazines and then put it.
And then flog it off as something new.
But it wasn't anything new.
Yeah. No, I get what you mean.
So we did try to get another thing going, but so far it hasn't happened yet because we're waiting for a few different people to actually do some work as well.
Yeah, we know what drifters are like.
Yeah.
So I guess Steve is also one of our few international drivers in Australia. After winning a trip to Europe through DCA.
Yeah, he's lucky to win that.
Yeah, but it's not always about luck. The guy does have a bunch of skill. So I think having him on board, and after seeing his wealth of knowledge and his approach to the judging last season through Super Drift is going to a worthy replacement for Mitch stepping down. It's not a downgrade, it's sort of or an upgrade. You're sort of sitting on the same level. It's just going to be a new brain for people to have to get their head around to start with. But I think the sort of unbiased nature and his expectations are sort of really similar to what Mitch wants. He's just maybe a little bit more harsh when it comes to driving techniques and things like that. So let's move on to what we wanted to talk about today. We had a bit of a discussion, and we're trying to work out each week where we should sort of head with things, and we want to keep it sort of in our zone to start with before we stretch out too much, and as more information comes out about other things. And EG wanted to sort of talk about
actually
cars.
Yeah, but first off, I thought we were going to talk about some news that kind of happened.
We can talk about news. I just figure we might get stuck on it for too long. I guess last weekend, the weekend just passed over in China for D1 GP there. I think it might have been their last round of their series. Their series has sort of been a bit funny, I think, over the winter or how they've worked it. They've done some big events. One of the ones I saw last year was they ran one inside a big stadium, a little bit more extreme than what they've done previously over in China, where they sort of just run a bowl around the outside of a athletics track or something like that. They sort of did a full unique track inside it, ran a concert at night, and it looked like about 10 people were there.
Yeah, that was weird.
I'm guessing there's some big players involved with that. And then according to social media over the weekend, there was there was one New Zealand guy over there, a whole bunch of Americans, a whole bunch of Japanese guys, and on the first day there were track dramas because they'd relayed the surface. There was a whole bunch of oil coming up out of the surface, and a whole bunch of cars ended up in the fence. And I think one of those videos has gone absolutely viral on Facebook of just car after car just punting the wall, and guys like Daigo Saito and all that just completely understeering through there. And then it looked like they brought in heavy machinery to sort of grate the track and put some grooves in it to try and give it some grip.
Oh, I didn't see that. I saw that the track was, I did see marks in the track, but I only watched the video of them going off and some other things on Instagram and Facebook on someone's taken on a 15-second clip, but otherwise, I haven't really seen much else.
Yeah, so it looked like they had graded the track to get it to a point where they'd have enough grip, but then when they started track activities on the second day that was supposed to roll into qualifying, a couple of busloads of cops showed up and kicked everybody out. I don't think there's been huge explanation for it, but the rumors are that
there was an explanation.
Yeah, of a noise violation and noise complaints from nearby, but then the event happened the next day.
Yeah. Supposedly there was some other event close by, and the track was near some sort of special religious area or something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but have you been to China?
Yeah, many years ago though.
Okay. Yeah, well, no, I went over a decade ago, but
I'm the same.
There is you kind of have to pay for everything, and
there's a few places around the world like that.
Yeah, I have a feeling that they might not have paid enough people to get the event going.
That's what I was probably more thinking along the lines of, considering how quickly it turned around and they were actually able to run the event. So you think that, but at the end of the day, I guess the fact that they got to hold it and that drifting is taking off in such a huge economy like China, hopefully everything crossed, brings it a little bit more mainstream. The fact that, and I know as much as it kills you, and I know we'll get in that discussion at some stage about the Americanization of drifting, but then the sort of the Japanese style or the Japanese pro style being taken into China that, is one of the biggest economies in the world, can only really be good for the sport. So the sport is in the two biggest economies in the world. Russia did really well during the FIA competition. So I look at that and go, holy crap, drifting is cementing itself in these three massive economy players in the world. Let's hope that for us that we can sort of follow in behind that. And I guess it can only be a good thing. But I think that's the different ways drifting has been interpreted is probably a discussion for another podcast, because I know Izzy will talk about it for hours.
Yeah.
It might be one where we actually get him talking. So I think as we roll into some of the FD seasons, and once D1 Japan starts up and we see more reveals of cars and things like that, we'll sort of try and follow that a little bit through these casts. The fact that we had Matty Hill win D1 NZ a couple of weeks ago, I think we'll try and keep people up to date with that. Through this. I think that's kind of cool, and he might be somebody we can catch up with in the future. I know he's fairly accessible, so even if it's just a small interview away from the live stream side of things, or we can get him on here, I'm sure he'd be more than happy to talk about himself. Or Warwick would Warwick would definitely be more than happy to talk about it.
Have they had a new episode come out yet?
Yeah, episode 3 came out today.
Did it? Yeah,
episode 3 was today.
Yeah, I was actually looking. I thought, because the last 2 episodes came out on Sunday, so I thought maybe last weekend there would be an episode out, but
well, if this podcast makes it to Mez, don't cut out the drama. Whenever something bad happens or they don't do very well, he cuts it and goes straight back to.
He's got the American style where it's almost like a reality show that he's trying to put on.
Yeah, but when they didn't do, I hope they do Cash Kings because they only get to the end of the DCA round.
Okay.
But considering both guys didn't do amazingly at Cash Kings, I can't wait to see the next episode and see if Cash Kings is in it or if it's just been completely bypassed. And if it is not in there, I'm going to call them out on it because I don't think that shows it. I don't know. Well, because they skipped over World Time Attack fairly quickly when there was
really?
a top 32 knockout. So.
Yeah, but there's no content. If you get knocked out, then
but go and talk to him, get the drama, like see how he's feeling, all that sort of stuff. But so that's my criticism.
He'll just tell you
Nah. He probably will. Knowing Mez, he'll probably dance and then tell me to go away. But
no, like whoever's
okay.
lost. Like, have you? Actually, you'll probably have more experience and you're better at it. But
trust me, I'm used to coming last and getting interviewed.
But you look at the other guys, look at these drifters. They all think, well, not all of them, but there's a majority that think the other.
What are you saying about me?
Because they're good.
yeah, for sure.
And then you tell them that you get knocked out, and then they go absolutely ape shit.
Yeah. But I guess, but what do you do? Show up to an event like Tassie where there's 60 cars, this many wins. And I guess that doesn't help, but I put my one finger up, and that's it. So you kind of grow an acceptance to that. All right. So rolling into our discussion for today, we were going to talk about cars and sort of drift cars in general, and sort of, I guess we didn't nail down an exact topic about cars, but I think we're going to lean towards talking about practice cars, comp cars, different styles of what your car is built for and used for.
Yeah, because
EG is a little bit more educated than me about that.
Yeah, well, we both have different types of cars, and I think we have different routes. So when you started, I think I guess you probably need to talk about what you got when you first started, and then I could say when where you want to end up at, and like short term, I guess, like a year or so, because you haven't been that long.
Yeah, almost 3 years now. 3 years.
So whereas my sort of when I first got it, and then my goals between the first year and the first 3 years, they changed a little bit. But I never really went for the same sort of comp car you did.
Yeah, and I guess that's a lot of that comes to timing as well. When I first started watching all you guys drift out at Oran Park, I loved my V8 supercars, all that sort of stuff, and I was like, when I'm on my P's, I'm going to get a VS or a VR Commodore and just do a mini spool and some lock mods and go drive it, the same as guys like Tim Sorensen and all those sort of guys were keeping it fairly basic and just out there driving. And then I moved overseas for a few years, come home, high-tech's taken off. I bought a street car, kept it pretty basic, and then I was like, okay, I feel like I'm ready I need a new energy. Let's go compete. And by that stage, drifting in New South Wales was high-tech and was no longer where you guys started as, Steve in his supercharged AE86 or you in your R31. Drifting had gone a lot more extreme and a lot more motorsport by that stage.
Yeah,
and I
don't think it changed very much in my opinion. Anyway,
the competition stuff that I could access easily, being high tech, was a pro competition, and that year that I started didn't even have the two levels. It was just high tech. But
getting back to your first car, the S14. Why did you get rid of it and go for
another S14?
Yeah, well, the car you have now. Like, why was that no good, and why did you move on to what was it? What did you start with, and why did you decide that you need to get rid of it to try and get and then change? Well, I don't know what you for the new S14.
Yep, I get what you mean. I guess for me, I started with a street car. It was basic as basic could be. When I bought it, it was unmatched panels, standard motor, 200,000k motor, standard gearbox, front mount intercooler, a leaky stainless steel manifold.
Yep.
That no boost controller, just wastegate pressure. I put a Z32 in it so I could clutch kick the hell out of it and not have to worry about it. I put a 4.3 diff in it so that I could spin the tyres.
Gearbox, you mean? Or
Yeah. I put a Z32 gearbox in it. I put a 4.3 diff in it. I still left it 6-bolt shafts. I did all adjustable arms, no lock mods. And I drove it like that for a good 9 months, I would say. Just like that. I did basically every driving sport and every Australian Drift Club day on the figure 8 that I could possibly do.
So how much power was that making? Did you dyno it?
No, it was not touched.
Okay.
Just serviced every 2 events and just 4 tires to every event and just drove the hell out of it for the first, I would say about 9 months. And then I got offered like a bolt-on package basically of T28.
Yep.
With a good manifold, all that sort of stuff.
T28 with the same turbo.
2871, sorry.
Okay, yeah.
And that was did E85 and this tune, but again, nothing else. Everything else had stayed the same. Still a standard motor, so I think we did it to, just 20 pound because of standard.
20 pounds, oh my god.
Because it might have been a little, maybe it was only 14 pound. I don't know. It was still standard motor. We didn't do head studs or anything like that.
Okay.
And I think it made about
20 pound. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, I think it did about. I think it was about 240 kilowatt.
Okay.
And I did a couple of events on. I did my first figure 8 with that. Found that now that the 4.3 was way too short and bumped it up to a 4.1.
Yep.
And then did the last Revo day before Wakefield closed.
Okay. So how far along was this in your?
Probably a year and a half.
Okay.
And then I wanted to turn it into a track car to be ready for the following. After doing Wakefield, I was like, I want to do more of this. I want to go drive more. I need a little bit more car. So at that stage, nothing really changed other than I put Wisefab on it and I pulled it off the road and did a bolting cage and I did all the body stuff, like made it look all pretty and wide body and a nice body kit, all that sort of stuff. And then
the green, the first.
No, that was a borrowed car that round.
Oh, okay.
That's one of my mate's cars and he still daily drives that after I did damage to it. Or somebody else did damage to me. So the first car was just.
This is still the first car?
Yeah. So most people don't know that the first car and the second car actually changed because they looked exactly the same.
Oh, okay. All right.
So the first car ended up, I did drift school and I've had awful history at drift school. I started doing drift school and I did one of the demos and I punted the wall at the Triple Challenge demos and bent the dump, all that sort of stuff. Then got it all fixed up, went back out to the next drift school day, and the the exhaust wheel was sitting in the back of the dump on the turbo. The turbo had just fallen apart. So at that stage, I got offered a motor that had a head built by PowerTune, and I went another 2871, competed that for most of the high-tech season. That year was doing okay. Fried a clutch on South Circuit, trying to clutch kick my way up on semis. But all year, because of the bolting cage, I've been getting pressure about having a welding cage because their regs said supposed to be welding CAMS approved cage. So an S14 came up for high-tech. Yeah, for high-tech. For high-tech. Well, that's what they were pushing. So every time we were there, because I was running under CAMS at the time, I'd get crap about it needing to be welded in. So this other car had come up. Mine was still standard bottom end and a small turbo. So and still running and just only running a Nistune engine management. So another S14 came up for sale, welding cage, forged motor, 3071 turbo, and then basically all the same bits that I had already done to my car. By then I tried to do preventative mods, I guess you could call them. I did a GTR diff and shaft. I'd done the bigger gearbox. Anything that would mean that I would get more track time was sort of done to the car.
So this was the new one?
So that was the first. That was the first car. I'd started doing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd done all that too, and then so I bought the new car because it had the cage basically, and because it had the motor. Moved any of the bits I needed over to the new one, and honestly, the main move was purely because of the cage. And then for the last 12 months, I've had nothing but drama, and literally the only thing that's left of that car now is the cage, because everything else on it was junk, or I broke it. So. And that's it. And
right.
and I built and then when I bought that car, I blew up the motor on the second day that I had it, and then I built a 400 kilowatt SR20.
Oh, okay, so you didn't swap the motor over?
No, I kept the motor that came with that car because it was a built forged motor, but it shot a rod out the block the second day I drove it.
Yeah, I'm a bit scared about built motors actually because of that reason.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that's why my thing is I like having a nice car.
I like having a nice car too. What do you mean?
No, that's not a dig at you. You asked my motivation for it. I like having a well presented car because I think it just opens more opportunities, I guess.
No, it's good. It looks professional. It's definitely looks. I know I can understand from an outside point of view. If I was to pick between your car and my car, I'd pick your car. Because it looks a lot better.
Yeah, for sure. From that point of view, and then I look at what your stuff is, and you'll explain it in a second. I go back to where I was and go, man, I used to be able to drive so much, and in the last 12 months, as much as I've been to more tracks than I've ever been to in my life, I spent a lot of time sitting in the pits.
Yeah,
and that's the crappy part.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of time helping me in the pits.
Well, I keep telling people, like, the more performance you have, the reliability drops. So it's kind of like this.
Yeah. So tell us about your 55,000 cars in your wrecking yard.
55. What was it? Last count was, I think it was 21 or 22. But they're not all running cars. But anyway, my first car was an R31 Skyline.
And what year was this?
What year was it? I think I was starting to look. So I saw drifting in videos. I think, did I mention the last?
Nah, that was the one that we didn't end up putting up because that was our pilot episode we didn't put up.
Yeah. So anyway, I saw drifting on the internet. It was some small video that I downloaded or popped up somewhere, and I thought, yeah, this is cool. And I kind of was also interested. Well, I was interested in rally as well. Then I went to a rally day with one of my friends who was rallying. Went in the car with them and thought, I'm going to die. So I gave up on rallying straight away. It was way too easy to kill yourself, I think.
Yeah, it's not the speed that kills you; it's the sudden stop.
Yeah, but it was fun. Like I love watching rally. Yeah, and I want to do it, but I think I care. I'm too scared to actually do it myself. Not fast enough anyway. So so drifting heaps safer, and I see it as the same sort of experience. So the cool part of it, the cool safe part of it is there, and that's what I like. So anyway, I went onto some forums, and the big popular forums are the Skyline forum, SAU, Nissan Silvia, and then there was drift section on Nissan Silvia. So I went on there, read a lot of stuff on there, and the general advice was you need to get a car made for drifting. So you have to get if there was a list of drift cars, then there'd be a Silvia, Skyline, whatever. And so then I thought, all right, well, I can't afford an S13 because that's 10 grand. I'm, just out of college, so I can't afford that. But I can always save for a car. So I started saving for an S15, and they're about $20,000 then.
Baller, this guy.
Well, I budgeted it out. I said, yeah, I could probably get enough money together and sort of combine some other sort of things that I can do and get enough money to get an S15. So off I went and started saving money, and then I sort of got bored and really wanted to drive. Like I was driving my mum's car around, and I was sort of sliding that already. I really didn't know what I was doing, but I was actually doing braking drifts, and because you could feel the car oversteer. I didn't quite know how to do it. It was a certain sort of way between roundabouts, accelerate, back off. The back of the car as you're turning will step out, and then I hit the brake, and it'll keep sliding. But all I knew was that sequence. I didn't actually understand that the car had speed, and because of the speed, it lifted when I hit the brakes or backed off in gear. And when I hit the brakes, it kept the weight forward and then stepped out.
What was it?
The car?
Yeah.
Mazda Astina. But
okay.
The one thing that made it click was just towards the end of that. So the girlfriend at the time, we had to buy a car because one of her friends crashed into my mum's car. So we bought
one of her friends crashed into your mum's car.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a story for another day, I'm sure.
Oh no, he was just tailgating, and he was older than me. I was looking in the mirror and I was like, oh, he's pretty close. No, he's all right. He's full license. He must know what he's doing. He's 20 or 21. I was 17. So I don't know. I have no idea. 17, 18. No, I was 18, 19. Anyway, he was older than me, so I just assumed he knew what he's doing. And then it was really it was his fault crashing into me, but it wasn't what caused it. So we were both traveling down to the coast. This truck came the other way that had it was filled with circus stuff, and a frame dropped out into the road because it bounced. So as the truck bounced, this big, huge frame drops out. I swerved, came back, and I was still braking. The other guy, he didn't get to swerve. He went on top of it, and he hit the brakes. Because he hit the brakes, he landed on top of the frame and stopped rolling, and he just slid straight into the back of me because I was slowing down because I just went, oh shit. And then so he smashed into me, and that's
so the real version of that story was EG was trying to drift through a roundabout in the techniques that he had explained earlier, and his mate tried to do the same and basically slammed into the back of him.
No, this is just just driving on the highway. So.
I'm sure that's how it all went down. Well, I'll imagine it my way, and you can imagine it your way.
So anyway, got the Astina, and I was playing with that. But I really wanted to drive, so I got a. There was a little small section, and I saw actually one of the old another guy at Oran Park because there was videos of drifting there, and he had an R31, and he was drifting that. And it looked really cool. I thought, okay, these cars can drift. Why don't I just buy one of those because they're only $1,000. So I went searching. It took me about a year to actually find one because I didn't want to spend that much money. And I got one. And I got sold a Silhouette, which I thought had an LSD. Didn't have an LSD, but it ultimately didn't matter because they were crap anyway, but I learnt after a lot of money. But anyway, so I got an R31. From there, I spent a lot of money on that car. So initially, it was only meant to be a car between getting an S15, so just getting that and learning. But I had some really bad advice from people that I thought knew what they were talking about. So they were saying, you can't, you need to have a turbo to drift. You need to have this to drift, coilovers and stuff like that. And then I just assumed because these guys they're older, they're senior, people are asking advice or they're giving advice to people. So I just assumed they knew what they were talking about. And I said, okay, fine. I've got to go. These guys are telling me advice. I've got to do what they say. And so you don't really need power to drift. So anyway, I bought a supercharger because it was a cheap mod, but it ended up being $1,500, and then I got annoyed with that and bought the first VL Turbo engine package I could, and so that came up. That was $3,000. So that I swapped the motor into that, and then I went out to a drift day, and all I did was drive around and burn the clutch out because I didn't change anything, and the clutch was rubbish. Oh, actually, no, I did change clutch, but I bought a cheap clutch. Anyway, it was no good. So I what happened after that? So yeah, I came back, swapped the clutch, then the next thing was the diff. So I had the factory Nissan R31 LSD, which is just a clutch pack. So it's just, I think it's just like springs in the diff that sort of push out or something. I'm not too sure how it works.
So not even the discs and stuff, like the shims and the discs.
No. It was just there were shims in there, but the shims were only to push the gears into the right place. But I think you could actually shim it tight, but I really didn't know anything about diffs back then. Oh, so yeah, I didn't know. I took the diff to a shop and gave him $600 to rebuild it. Got it back, and then drove that around, and that blew up. Like it wore out because the guy said, "Yeah, this is pretty flogged." So then it didn't quite work like I thought. So I got another LSD, and I gave him like 3 LSD diffs, and I said, "Can you make a good one out of these?" And I paid another $600 or $900 or something like that, and he kept the parts. Those parts I didn't realize were worth so much money back then. Because anyway, that's all the Commodore and Falcon people want, the diff gears, and I just gave it to this guy, and he asked for $900 back from me. So he made a lot of money off me.
Money off you.
Yeah. Anyway. So I put that in. That lasted 3 drift days. It felt really good. And the third one was dead. And so then I gave up and put a mini spool in. Heaps better. And then...
and how long did that car... So then how long did that car do you once you sort of... How long was the 31 your designated drift car for?
Between the time I got it and the time I bought the new one. Is that what you're talking about? So the next car after that was a R32. So, but I was interested in the Silvia, but I was intending to build a track R31, but then my car got stolen. Oh no. What happened? No, I got offered an engine package. So RB25, and I bought that because it was tuned for over 200 kilowatts, and it came with a computer. Everything was a good deal, and it was a good deal. So I bought that, and so I had an engine, but I didn't want to put in my R31 because I always wanted at that time an R32 with an RB25 in it. So I bought the engine first, then I went looking for an R32, bought that, and put that together. And then so my R31 was sitting there, but I still wanted to have an R31 drift car, like a dedicated drift car.
Yeah.
And the R32 was fun as a daily because I wanted to kind of save my R31, my first R31, and do something a bit, keep it clean kind of thing. Because at that time, it's never crashed into anything. I don't think I haven't really sort of pushed the panel in that far. It's only been sort of little small hits, which the car still looks relatively straight for its age.
Do you still have that car now?
Yeah, I still have it. It's in the backyard, but it doesn't run. I don't know why.
It's an RB30. It should run.
I know, but so with that car, a couple of years ago when I put Rego on it, I connected up the battery. I took my phone out, started recording video. I turned the key. It turned on straight away. Cool. Looked over the car, turned on straight away. Awesome. Turned off the video, jumped in the car, put it in reverse, and the car stopped, and I can't get to start ever since.
So it's just sitting there dead now.
It's just sitting there. Yeah, well, people have borrowed bits off it now. So the headlight's missing, the coil's missing, some other bits and pieces are missing. The seat, I think, was taken out and put into Nick's car for Rego.
You've molested your firstborn child.
Yeah, I have.
That's not okay.
I will fix it one day. It's
It's still not the same though. It's just not the car anymore.
So, And
So they move. So onto your. So with the 32, that was to be a street driven, because you wanted the 31 to be just a track car, drift
No,
car, or whatever.
my R31, my original R31 was going to be. I spent too much money on it. I can't get rid of it, and I was just going
Yeah.
to keep it forever, which I'm
Yeah.
doing it now. My R32 was my street car, so
Yeah.
I could drive to and from work, and that's what I did. And then after I got back from a trip to Japan, when I was in Japan, after I came back, I said I have to buy an S chassis. It's so there's so many parts. Like we went and looked around, so many parts. I'm doing something stupid, trying to keep an R32 as a drift car. So I bought a S13 shell. I don't think you've seen it before. It's a blue S13. So I bought it as a running shell. So the engine did run, but it had a broken cam in it, or like the cam was worn round rather than actually having
Being lobed.
So I drove it home, and then I drove it to Ben's house, drove it back home, and then it stopped. It was like, whatever. Like that was always the plan. I bought it as a shell, and so it sat there for a little while. Then my R32 got stolen, and then I bought an engine for the S13 and put that in. Got my R32 back. Then I really didn't. I kind of felt a bit weird in my R32 because it's been stolen, and so it was. Then at that point, it changed from my daily to like my. I don't know how you call it. My
beater
street. All I did was like street drift in it. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, I guess so. It was your. I need to vent some frustration, so I'm going to go and beat the crap out of this car because I don't really care about it so much anymore.
Yeah, it's a weird feeling. It's like it's not mine anymore. That's what it feels.
Yeah.
And it's bad because the car was good. Like it still went really well, but I just didn't like it.
Yeah, that's fair. But I guess when you've had somebody violate it and you thought it was yours, it's sort of
Yeah, it didn't feel like my car, so I started to abuse it a little bit and try and focus on making the S13 my street car, and that worked for a while. And then I did something stupid, and then I damaged the engine, so that was my own fault. And then that started this series of very, very dodgy SRs that went into there, because I think it's had 5 or 6 different SRs in there that's lasted for varying times in between sort of a year to even like turning on dead kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, but in that time, I sort of changed my view on track cars, and I ended up deciding it's better to get a tow car and a track car. So I started with an S13 shell, another one, and myself and Nick bought another SR20 from a wrecker, so it should be in good condition to put in. And then another car came up. Actually, I don't even know which order it is. Oh, so yeah, my 32 came up. So I bought 2 32s in like over 3 or 4 days because they were cheap. They were really cheap. So one guy I made an offer a long time ago, and then he ended up selling like after about a month. He actually took my offer. Like it was unexpected. And then another time, just within like a day of getting that offer of the first car, another R32 came up with another offer. Like an offer that will say, hey, do you want to buy my car for this much with this deal? So the deal was I had to do some work as well. So, and that was cheap. So they were both cheap. So I can't pass both of these up. So I bought both of them.
So what I'm figuring here right now is either you earn way too much money.
No.
Stuff back then was way too cheap. Plus, to go alongside that, you have way too much space.
I have space. I only buy cheap shit. I think you can tell from the stuff I bring. I was trying to get as cheap as possible.
Just because you're trying to get it cheap as possible doesn't mean it is cheap, though.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think it's a bargain, so that's why I buy it.
Okay.
Other people seem to think it's a bargain. Well, anyway, but no, I don't earn that much money. No, out of my friendship group, I'm one of the lower earners.
But it's funny listening to you say all that and then compare it to my story. Is I had the one car that I would have been better off selling because it was still regoed, and I turned it into a non-regoed track car, even though you could have done something similar. But because I'm in a situation where I have to literally drag my trailer inside where my car lives and then drive my car back up onto the trailer is the only way I can sustainably keep a car, and that's all the space I have for that car.
Yeah,
that's what I'm stuck with.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the situation falls into why we do the things that we do too, though.
Yeah, that's true. But I can I'm sure you could find friends to store, because at the time I was storing friends for other. I was storing cars for friends.
You were storing friends for other people.
For other cars. Yeah.
I don't want to know about your dungeons and stuff.
No, I don't live in a big mansion like you. Very simple house. It's a slab, so it's out in the south side of Canberra as well, not in the middle of Sydney.
Yeah.
So just with my 180.
Yeah.
So at the time I was trying to get track cars going, and I bought a tow car, Falcon, much better than a Commodore.
Then a what?
They drift.
Then a what?
They do drift. Have you drifted your Commodore?
No,
I've drifted my Falcon, so they're much better.
Yeah, but that's because I'm soft and you're not.
So bought a Falcon tow car. Started collecting track cars. I don't know why I started collecting. Oh, I know. I ended up collecting track cars. So I started to get those ready, and I thought, it'd be cool if we all have the same color car. And then so I sort of suggested the idea, and it was easier if I kind of did two myself and then showed them, and then I'm pretty sure that they'd get the hang of it. So otherwise, the guys in my group, they were kind of warming up to it, but I think once they saw how ideal a track car is, they kind of were okay with, well, not all of them. So yeah, actually, no, they haven't warmed up yet. Only one of them has, because otherwise all the other ones are street registered. So yeah, no, that hasn't actually worked. But anyway, we've got the track cars. I've got the track cars, and it was much better because we could actually not worry about if we actually made contact with each other, because you can get close, but we've always had the gap where if something goes wrong, we don't want to hit them, except Nick, if he's the only one that doesn't have that sort of safety margin. So I think he's the one that hit me in his street car and into my car.
Yeah, I guess the thing is that even the guys with the nice track cars at the moment are sort of anti damage.
Yeah,
and
I'm not talking about door caving. It's like the goal is for soft touches. So just leaving that tire mark. But if something turns from a soft touch to a door cave, it's not a big issue. That sort of kind of thing.
I think the hardest part, and I guess this is a little bit off topic from the cars thing, is that I think the most difficult transition in drifting is going from, hey, I can link a lap together, I can put down a perfect quali run, to being somebody who can absolutely door somebody, because you've got the skill set there to do exactly what the judges want or what you expect of yourself at a track day in linking the whole circuit, knowing what to do in those situations. But then it's putting that into practice with this unpredictable thing in front of you. It's predictable in the sense of you know what it's supposed to do.
That's right, yeah.
But there's still its own mind in that as well, whether it's a mechanical failure or a driver that's had a moment or whatever. And I think that's where it gets difficult. So even if you've got a street car and you've been able to get your level to a point where you can do all that, or you've got a really nice track car that's, you can afford some wear and tear, the risk of a major incident is in that period between going from, hey, I can do a good lap, to, hey, I can now door people. Because I would trust putting, say, a Luke Fink in a $100,000 street car that somebody loves and say, go door that person, as long as that person leading is reliable, and he's probably going to do it safely, and he's going to know what the other guy's thinking before he even thinks it. But you shove somebody like me in that situation, there's a really good chance that car's getting written off. And both cars are getting written off. So I think and I think this is where sort of the missile culture sort of is a good thing, because that's where that gap sort of learning needs to happen, because you shouldn't have a car that you're too worried about, and you don't want to have spent too much money, because there's a chance that it may get written off because of that learning curve in that middle section. Yeah,
that would be, as long as it's thought as so when you say missile, it's for the purpose of learning, not for the purpose of destroying it. Because if you
that's why I did quotations, but people will be listening and won't see me saying quotations. I say the missile culture as in the practice car culture.
So it's for practice. So the purpose so it has one purpose, and the one purpose is for practice.
Tandem practice.
But
I guess on tracks where you've got walls and stuff, if you want to learn your distances and stuff.
That's right. So I know sometimes the word missile is frowned upon, and it's just a word to describe something. And people see the issue was that people said missile, and then when they see missile, they think they're going to completely destroy this car, and that's not the goal. It's you're meant to. If you're going to destroy the car, when you set it on fire, like it's why you're going to completely.
Well, you want to keep going back to practice. It's not like, unless you've got 50 cars like you've got in the backyard. If I had my practice / missile car, I'm not going to want to ride it off every time I go out and drive, because then I've got to buy a new one.
But I don't want to ride any of the cars.
I know, but
even when I've got the spare shells here, like I've got 2 spare shells, one spare 180 that needs a little bit of work, but still a spare shell, a spare S13 shell, and actually another 2 S13 shells. Sorry,
but they're rainy day shells.
So there's got to be a point where we can't actually fix
salvage.
The car. But then we don't actually want to reach that point either. It's not meant to be, because we've had our cars for, I think I chucked up a video today actually, and on the Team Red Stage page, I think it was
shameless plug.
Well, no, it's more if I said where, then it wouldn't. I can describe it with. Anyway,
I'm joking. Link in the description.
So that was 3 or 4 years ago. Actually, I can't remember now. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. That's when we started doing the practice cars, and they're still the same cars. So it's not you have it for 1 year, or you have it for like this one event and you completely destroy it. It's you take care of it. It's not, if it gets destroyed doing your practice, then it's fine. But the goal isn't to destroy it. That's just a byproduct or something. Like, it's just what happened, and it wasn't because of the design of the car. It wasn't
intentional.
Yeah. So the intention is to practice. That's what it should be. And then now those cars have changed to our battle cars. So they're the ones that we take to comps, and they're kind of not our comp cars, because they're not like I would consider your car to be a comp car, the way it's presented.
But I guess it depends on but I guess it depends on what level of competition you're talking to, though. Yours is the cars that you guys are driving are definitely club level like club level competition cars, or even I think Nick's Silady is definitely a DCA car, nice, clean, all that sort of stuff. And even your car's pretty tidy, but it's not one of those. In pictures, it comes up nice, but if people walk past it in the pits, it's not the first car that they're going to run over to and be like, "Hey, that's the coolest car here." But it's still one color. It's presentable. Nothing's missing. It doesn't look like crap.
Nick's Silady is more like a comp car than anything else. The cage, the amount of stuff that's been done to it. So the what's it called? The
tubs.
Yeah, the tubs, the cage. The cage in there is amazing. Like, you pay a lot of money for it, and it definitely shows the quality. It's such a good cage. And then the stylish seats and the original wheels that he was intending to get for the car, the body line as well. Like, except for the rear guards. Like, but I don't know what his plan was, but that was probably the only sort of thing that that needs, I could see that needs to be done before running as a comp car.
But I guess you bring up you sort of see at a good point when it comes to saying that he spent a lot of money on the cage. That's not necessarily something that he would want to go and learn to tandem in if he couldn't already tandem, because if he writes that shell off, that's it. That money's dead. He can't pull that cage out of that car. Where when you're talking your practice cars, you're better off looking at you've picked up a shell cheap and it's got a cage already in it, or it's got a bolting cage and it's something that can be moved from car to car, or depending if the event allows it, not even having a roll cage of any description, and just sort of taking your other safety precautions in place. And sort of looking after it from that perspective, so it's not costing you huge sums of money every time you go out and drive and risk the car. Competition's completely different, regs are different, and everybody's driving it, attempting to drive at 110%. So things do happen, and I guess that's where having the nice car to gain attention and to sort of build the profile of the sport is good. But then it does get more expensive when the accidents and things like that happen. So,
but it shouldn't happen.
It shouldn't happen, but it happens.
Yeah, well, that's something else. It's not really. That's a topic other than the cars.
Yeah, cars.
But
so what do you feel like in
the title interview sort of talk?
Nah, but no, because I want to pick your brain up, because I've only had. My car has sort of progressed with me to where I wanted to have my cars, which was to step into competition, have the well presented competition style car from the beginning, and I've already got that within 3 years of driving. But you've sort of gone through multiple different phases of drift cars and multiple different ups and downs within the community. What do you think is the biggest lesson that you learnt through that, though? Because this is not only me interviewing you, this is me wanting to learn from you so that I stop making the mistakes that I've been making.
Biggest? No, I don't think. With your car, you build your car that you want. That's
100%. But there's still things to be learnt from other people's experiences.
Yes, and it's really hard to know what is good advice and what's bad advice, because if you don't have no knowledge on it, then you don't know who's right. You just kind of think, I've got this guy, he looks senior, I'm going to listen to him. And then if it ends up being bad advice, then how do you know? You don't know until you do it. So
because you listen to the sensible Japanese guy who's got 15 cars in his backyard.
Well, yeah, but with me, I want more drift time. So I want time to drive the car, and I just want to keep driving with my mates and all that sort of stuff. And that's fun. I like chasing people down as well. And sort of comparing a little bit to some sort of extent where, can I keep up with this guy with 400 kilowatts? And then, because I think I can, or sometimes I have. So sometimes the car's really fast, and I have no chance. But yeah, if you have you just, if there's any advice, is try build your car, but don't try and ignore anyone else. So if someone's sort of giving you advice, consider it, but don't let it influence what you want, unless you want it to influence you, kind of thing. So if you want an amazing A86, then go get an A86, do all the stuff you wanted to do to it, and then go drive it. But if someone keeps telling you to change to a Silvia instead because they're easier to drift, they are easier to drift. Well, I think so anyway. There's a lot more parts, it's cheaper. They're probably, actually, I'd say they're about as easy, but they would be easier because it's easier to get power out of an SR, which, they already come with a turbo variant. And so, I mean, that's still good advice, but it's not the car that you want. So you should consider it. Like, do I really want the A86? If you don't really want it that much, then consider the S13. But it's like, if you're like, nah, I want the A86, get the A86. Don't worry about them. You'll be much more happier. The only thing I want is I want people to drive more. I don't want people to sit there and spend years and years just not driving, just building a car. If you want to build a car, it's fine, but get something else. If your passion is drifting, then go drifting. Build your 8.6, but get an S13 as well. That's basic. Shim the diff, exhaust, intercooler, whatever. Do the track days. You need to get on the track. That's one thing is people are not doing enough.
And I think one of the major things that you pointed out as well is the fact that taking advice is looking at it, how it impacts your situation. When you're listening to that person talk, are they in a similar situation to what you're in, or are they taking the journey, or have they taken a journey similar to the one that you're expecting? And that might be sound advice that could lead you on a good path. But if it's somebody who's, say, just loves going and doing Matsuris, but you're hoping one day to land in Formula D, you're not really going to want to listen to the dude who's doing the Matsuris. Or if you want to listen to somebody who just loves going over to Japan and has their car sitting at Ebishu and goes over 3 times a year for a week and drives their car there and doesn't have anything local, well, their advice for local stuff really holds no value at all, because their personal experience. Yeah, but I'm more mean from that personal situation when you're going to use it. Yeah, they can tell you about the seat time and all this sort of stuff, but it's not direct to what your situation is. And I think if you can get as much direct information to a similar situation to you, it starts to make, you can skip some steps in your learning process.
Yes.
I got that in skating, and I'm getting it in drifting. You sort of, the more mistakes you can learn from other people before you have to make them yourselves, the few steps ahead you already are, and the money you've saved, the number of hours on track you've managed to score, all that sort of stuff can be a benefit. But again, that's hand-picking the right stuff to listen to.
How do you know which was the right stuff? Like, you have to make a judgment. Well,
and that's
what you're saying. That method is good. It makes sense, and it's very logical. But I don't think you should disregard.
But you should never.
Based on that sort of thing. I think you should consider it. That's all I'm saying is, just consider it. You don't have to follow it. Just think about it, and that's it. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. As long as you've thought about it.
Yeah, well, it's either way. No matter what the advice there's no bad advice. It's a lesson learnt. So I think that's where people have got to sort of take that. And I guess the scary part with even sort of, I look at the fact that you've been able to hoard a few S13s in your backyard and things like that. You could probably sell your bundle of stuff now for probably
much.
You reckon?
No,
you think?
I get them cheap, and there's a reason why I get them cheap.
Yeah, because a little bit banged up, whatever. But I think in the next few years, the fact that we haven't been gifted here with the cheap 350Zs. Yes. We haven't been gifted with a Hyundai Genesis. All we've got to hope for is that more and more 8.6s get written off by P-platers. and sort of that sort of thing, or we start to look at, and I keep saying it, if somebody can come up and engineer a cheap set of knuckles for Commodores and Falcons and some good coilovers, that's it. That's the Australian drift community for a while, because you guys go over to Japan, most of you have JZXs and all that sort of stuff. That's our Aussie equivalent. As much as people would hate that to me is our Aussie equivalent.
Yeah.
And
well, that's what I call JZXs in Japan. They're the Commodore of Japan.
Yeah, and so I think,
and they're all auto.
Yeah, and so I think if there was a bit of a culture swing, and I know in Sydney actually there's a lot of guys now buying Commodores and Falcons with autos and sort of doing some diodes on the gears to stop them from, some of them, even if you put it in second gear, will still shift up and down.
Yeah.
Put diodes in it to stop it from doing that, and they've been going out and bashing up the wet pan and all that sort of stuff. But again, that's being auto is a bit of a limiting factor for that. But I guess that's sort of where we're at. We sort of, in the future, all we do is sit and hope that a whole bunch more 8.6s get cheap or written off so that they can be turned into track cars, or it becomes more culturally acceptable to take a Falcon or a Commodore. I guess now that they're discontinued, it's a bit harder, but
there's still plenty of 33s as well.
There's still plenty of them.
Yeah, there's plenty of those, and they're
cheap. But there has been a sway towards some of them though too. I think I see more of them now than I did, like you being used as practice cars compared to being used as competition cars.
Yeah.
So I think that's the consideration some people need to make. Competition, you're always best to have the best balance, the easiest to buy parts for, like your Wisefab and all that sort of stuff for your S chassis. But again, I think the cars are gonna have to change because of what we're stuck with and what the numbers are becoming. Like the price of some of the stuff at the moment is just ridiculous, and I guess there's multiple reasons that stuff's impacted. There is the big cultural following of the S chassis and all that sort of stuff that has pushed up the price. So I think if there's a new cultural change towards something else, that stuff may get cheaper. But again, there will still only be X number left when that changes. So I think that will also be a big impact on the scene.
Yeah, I think cars will start to run out. Yeah.
And I think that's just looking for an alternative.
Yeah, S chassis are starting to go up in price, even though there's still a lot of them. There's a lot less of them now than there used to be, and they're becoming classics too. Because what's the first one? I think the first one's
88.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's 30
years this year.
Yeah.
It's a big birthday for their chassis, really. Like some of us are nice people too.
But okay, so with other drift cars, there's also the other style of not comp, not practice, which I don't really have any experience of, is like the fashion cars.
Yeah, and
what do you know about? Because I know very little. I went to a drift fashion kind of garage when I went with Nick in 2011.
In Japan?
Yeah, in Japan.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. In 2011, we went to Japan and we went and checked out 326 Power. That was in Hiroshima. Have you heard of those guys?
Yeah, they do the body kits and the low sort of wings and all that sort of stuff and all that sort of stuff.
Super low cars. So they low is cool kind of thing, and they work on trying to get a car to drift well when it's absolutely slammed to the ground. And all their cars are like when there's a gap. I think when I went there, they said a 10 mil gap. That's high. It's going to be like 5
smaller is better.
Yeah, and then 10 mil. Oh, that's trucking. That kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, I guess I don't have exact experience, but I got a few mates who are sort of into more of the style forms. Competition isn't for everybody, but a lot of people like to have nice looking cars, and sort of, I guess, the lower it is, the cooler it is, and I don't think that's really ever changed in any car culture. I think even back when muscle car was king, unless it was a drag car or something, I think low was cool back then too, and I think low has continued to be cool. So I think getting that sort of stuff to work, but I guess where competition and that sort of started to break away from each other is partly reliability as well. When you're driving on tracks that sort of undulate, or you're going to risk going off track, you don't want to be bashing up parts. So being that little bit higher is a little bit safer for that sort of stuff, where you wanted to get through competition, where these guys, I think, is a little less cares given about necessarily ripping off body panels and that when they show up to an event, because, you know, it showed up looking pretty schmick with the subframe basically dragging on the track. And I think you can get anything to work when it comes to drifting, and you can get anything to drift, but again, it comes down to the situation and the style of track and the style of driving that you need to do to achieve what your end goal is, I guess.
Look cool. I think that's the biggest goal. Look cool,
and
drifting, be fashionable.
Yeah, and that's what I mean though, like that. Yeah, that compared to being super gripped up through a whole course where you can put the car exactly where you want, sort of thing.
These guys, they want that as well. So they want to look cool, they want to compete, or at the time they want to compete, and they want to do well. So they were doing lots of stuff, like the amount of suspension mods that I just didn't know about, that they did just to keep handling normal was crazy, as well as some dodgy mods to keep it normal as well.
But some of that stuff was outlawed, I'm pretty sure, as well. Like Nigel Petrie from Victoria cutting the top of on his competition 180, cutting the top of the rear strut towers and raising them so that he could still have the full stroke of the coilover, but the car sat nice and low because of it. I think a lot of that's, and I'm sure that was the similar mods to what were happening over there to make the car still handle and work the way it was designed to do it. But you sort of move the body around it, I guess, the same way as American Muscles used to do lowriders, where you'd sort of move where the pickup points for the chassis frame would be, but we can't do that with unibodies. But doing those sort of mods to make them work. But I think in Australia we have a big culture, and the US is the same, where people aren't going to that extreme. They're purely wanting to build the car for, the fashion side of it, big numbers, and just want to go thrash. Yes, they get.
But
and they'll get the best out of it that they can. It's not like they're purposely running neg-5 of camber, but when you put your car that low to the ground anyway, neg-5 is about all you can get out of your adjustable arms and whatever that sort of thing. So I think that's where that sort of comes from, and some people just don't like competition. Some people like playing park soccer with their mates, but it doesn't mean they're going to sign up and play Sunday league soccer because they're not competitive. Just even in nature. So I think that's where drift is as well. It's just got a couple of different streams of what people want to do drifting, and I guess it's the same with motorsport in general, because we're a subculture of motorsport. Even though we're a freestyle motorsport, there's all sorts of categories of racing. Like I think Time Attack is cool for the cars, but I think it's boring as hell to watch. The one perfect.
Yeah, everyone seems to say that about Time Attack. Oh, well, not everyone. I say a lot of people, they don't really like watching it, but they still go and watch it for some reason.
Yeah, but the engineering and all that sort of stuff is super cool. So I think if you understand both sides, you just appreciate it for what it is. But then you can go to a series as simple as the AE86. The 86 Cup in alongside the V8 supercars, and every car is exactly the same, but there's 40-something odd cars on it. And man, when the front of the field decides to get into each other at the start of the race and 40 other cars plow into the back of them, that's fun to watch too. So I guess drifting has all those sort of subcultures as well, and I guess that's one of the things, and I think it's acceptance within the community that there is a place for all of it, and everybody at the end of the day just wants to go and rip skids and have fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I don't know anything about fashion cars.
I think it's just a personal preference. It's I like having a car that looks like a race car. Even if I wasn't competing, I like having a car that looks like a race car because I've always loved V8 supercars and that sort of stuff where the big chrome wheels and some of the other stuff to me is just like, it looks cool, but that's not my personal taste on it.
Yeah, I don't know which way I'd go, actually.
That's because your car's covered in like book contact.
Oh, it's signed vinyl.
Signed vinyl. There's book contact. My mum used to wrap my books in that stuff when I was in kindergarten.
This stuff's heaps better.
Oh, it's so much better, I'm sure.
Yeah. So yeah, that's. Yeah, I don't know anything about fashion cars. Any other type of drift cars?
No, I guess front wheel drive cars. We could. Do you want to go there? Do you want to go there, or are we gonna stay out of this topic?
I don't care. I don't.
Okay.
I don't see any difference with it in the drifting aspect, the actual drifting.
Yeah, look, I was, I guess, lucky enough, if you want to say, to go for a ride with Connor when I blew up my gearbox at the last Wakefield day that I did.
Yeah.
And Connor's the guy who, for people who don't know, the guy who broke the internet competing in G1 GP over in Japan in the Honda Prelude that everybody seemed to get really butthurt over. And I got to jump in with him before he broke the internet. And I thought that it would be a really good platform for anybody who wants to start and wants to start learning how to use handbrake. It's the way the front wheel drive reacts to the handbrake and being able just to accelerate out of it to get yourself out of trouble, I think would be a great place to start for a lot of people who are heavy clutch kick users and just sort of stand on the throttle and pray type drifters that I know we've got a lot of them in Sydney, and it does get a bit sketchy, especially now that there's the wall on the figure eight. But just seeing the way the car reacted and being able to use the handbrake to modulate some of that angle, mainly on initiation. Yes, then I know he's got some fancy techniques to keep the slide going, but just seeing how easy it was to get the car back under control by just getting in the throttle, where one of the big issues I think we have when people start to learn to drift is one of the biggest and worst habits is getting off throttle, and that's what causes you to have all sorts of problems like completely being shot the opposite direction to what you're actually drifting and all that sort of stuff. So I think there's merit in people even potentially starting there before they get too heavily involved with building crazy cars and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think they should have the ability to do both, because you can braking drift a front wheel drive and a rear wheel drive and probably all wheel drive. So
yeah.
If you think you can brake drift, then you should be able to do it in any car. As long as it's a normal car. I'm not saying any car as in a modified car, because there's been some modified cars where I can't brake drift because they're just so unnatural or in some reason or other. Like easy example is drag car. Like you couldn't brake drift a drag car because
exactly. Well, it's got no front grip really.
Yeah.
So
it would be really weird, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if it's like would you try and front wheel drive drift?
If I had more accessibility to a track and more space, it is potentially something I would probably keep.
But what about Macca's trays? You know, that old one.
Nah, I think after going in a car that was set up properly to do it the way it was and being able to carry the right amount of speed and it not being wild, like I think people sort of expect it to be.
Connor's car? Is that probably it's not set up?
Yeah, but when I say set up properly, I mean like it's still got rear grip. Where putting Macca's trays or wood under the back tires, like Mighty Car Mods did with their cars for one of their episodes, is the rear end is completely out of control. There's basically no traction there. It's as good as putting oil underneath your rear tires or something. There's just nothing there. Where having something that still has rubber underneath it still gives you that proper balance of a car.
Yeah.
The same way as if we ran Space Savers all the way around, like one of those option DVDs did, when there's just absolutely no grip anywhere. That's unpredictable and sketchy as hell. It doesn't matter what form of car it is. If you've played with the balance that badly, then it's dangerous.
But what I think is an ideal car to begin with is a normal car. So it would be something that feels really standard, really balanced. So nothing like too much power, not enough power. It'd be a balanced car. So which I would say would be a standard car that you can get, like a Mazda 3 that you can jump into.
Just go and throw around.
Yeah, and then you can try and do it. But a Mazda 3, I think, some of them have traction control or stability control or something like that. So you got to make sure you can turn it off or get a model that doesn't have it.
But when we were living over in the States, we had a little Honda Jazz or a Honda Fit over there, as they'll call it, and when it snowed, mate, or even after it stopped snowing, the handbrake got to work out in that car, and that was still pretty fun. But I think for me, I started doing a lot of driving, or I learnt my basic drifting on the simulator, and you learn what to do with your hands, you learn what to do with your feet, but you never learn what it feels like for the car, how the car moves underneath you.
Yeah.
And then I'd had a ride in a Drift Australia car in 2007 or something like that, but it all happened so quickly, one lap of Eastern Creek and it was all over. But then just after I moved home and I had my car and I hadn't gone to a drift day yet, I jumped in with somebody at Wakefield and did a handful of laps. And to feel how the car moved underneath me, even without me driving, was a big lesson learnt. And I think that's what you're sort of alluding to with saying a car that's balanced, and you just learn to feel how the car reacts and it moves to different inputs, where somebody would say jump into mine or my old car where it was a little bit more responsive and would probably have a fairly easy time. 60 something degrees of lock, really settled, not too much body roll, really responsive. You can almost look like you know what you're doing straight away. Where going and chucking around a standard Falcon or something like that is going to be a whole lot harder. But when you jump into something like that, you're gonna, if you've been able to even get a bit of a slide going in that, you're going to find this 3 worlds completely different easier.
Yeah, I can see your point, but you should try front wheel drive drifting. That's my point.
Yeah.
Just get Steve's car next time.
No, I have tried it. In the US, I used to do silly stuff with the Honda all the time.
No, like on the asphalt, somewhere you feel comfortable with, whatever that is. I don't mind. Just don't get caught. Get in trouble.
Yeah, basically don't do it in New South Wales. Go visit EG in the ACT.
What are you talking about? Nothing happened here.
WA, it all happens in Western Australia or Mexico.
Yeah, well, that's America. No,
No,
Japan.
I'm joking.
In Japan, that's where I've been out in Japan, and that's where most of my experience comes from.
Mexico happens in Mexico.
Japan.
But I think
Mexico.
But I think that sort of covers basically where drift cars are currently, and I guess then you just got your different grades of each of those. Like your practice cars are either your complete missiles that are beat to crap, or somebody still takes pride in them but doesn't mind it being rubbed up, and then you sort of step into a car like your 180 that's sort of your entry level club competition type car, and then you sort of move into something a little bit more like mine that's a little bit more power but doesn't have all the crazy bells and whistles, but it has a few bells and whistles, and then you step right up into your Formula Drift style, no front end, no back end, sequential boxes, 1200 horsepower, and then there's just those different grades of cars within that. And that all comes down to your regulations. You don't need 1200 horsepower if you're not spinning 295 semi slicks. And again, back to your point from a while ago about it just being, as the performance goes up, your reliability sort of starts to come down with it. So I think that's one of the big things. Anything else on this topic that you sort of want to go over, or are you pretty much?
No, I think we've talked about it a bit. I can argue my point a bit more about other things, but I think you'll just go on forever, and we don't need to.
Yeah, and I think some of them are discussions for other days with some of the different styles of driving sort of thing. I think even with the front wheel drive thing, it sort of starts to fall into another category of just types of driving as opposed to types of cars that are used for that driving. I think probably agree with that point, as that sort of changes the way we sort of view the cars and the type of driving. So we're going to keep. This is 2 weeks in a row we've managed to get down and do a podcast. They will be up fairly close together. We have been working on trying to get a logo before we put them up fully. That's EG. I did some beautiful drawings for him, and he actually made something. He made something really cool actually out of it. I showed one of my students today, a couple of days ago, after you sent me that image, and they were like, I showed them my little drawing.
Yeah.
That I sent you.
Yeah.
And then showed them both of the ones that you sent me, and they were like, "How did they get that from that?" And I'm like, "He got me." You sort of nailed that. So now that we have that, that'll be going up. Hopefully, these will be 2 episodes will have been fairly close together.
Yep.
And I think we're going to try
this week, and then try and get them up. So try and get them up weekly. I think we'll stick with the same schedule. And what day do you want to release them weekly?
I don't know. We're talking about Sundays maybe, but I don't know. I don't think it really matters. I think if we get it early in the week or on the weekend at the end, people may listen to them to and from work, and hopefully get some insight from them. But if people have any sort of feedback on that, or they think we should just, we've been trying to do this, lock it in mostly on a Wednesday night, but we can't always lock that in. But if we can, and you guys want it straight away, I guess I'll put pressure on EG to pump it up straight away. But that's sort of where we're at with that.
I think the end goal is actually to make it live. So on Wednesdays probably work for me. So if we can actually end up doing live things every Wednesday, is that?
Yeah, I think and Wednesdays is good because for most of us, if we're heading off like Mount Gambier, we'll all be driving down on Thursday, and any other event like that, where most of the time Wednesday's a pretty free night unless we're all trying to pack cars and all that sort of stuff. But I think it also gives us the ability at some of those events to actually sit down and even potentially to do live together from those events. So I think that's sort of giving everybody an idea of where our head's at with a game plan. If we get a big enough following, I'm going to shameless plug mine. I got my Greg Merriman merchandise in today. But if we can get a bit of a following for this, we're more than happy to jump in and do some clutch kick gear. If anybody's wanting to get involved and wants to come on and share their story, let us know. We're more than happy to either do a sort of one-on-one. But I think we've managed to do 2 weeks in a row. Hopefully we can keep doing it, and give us some feedback. And I guess we'll try and come up with a topic for next week. And I think maybe it's worth, once we've got a big enough following, we might just throw a poll up each week on what to discuss that week, and people can have a bit of a say as to what they want to hear about. But I think we'll try and
cover local events at least. But
I
won't get as much exposure as you would. So
to local stuff.
Yeah, it's local stuff. But I do watch things like occasionally, so the Japanese things like FD Japan, Sometimes I catch IDC because it's on late at night and I stay up pretty late.
You stay way too late.
So I watch that sometimes. FD,
Discussion for another day.
I watch it, but I think it's going to be the same thing over and over again. That's what I think. So I don't think I. Well, yeah. Well, I watch it occasionally. Otherwise, there's other things on YouTube that I watch. So Alexi and whenever Nick comes over, we watch his favorite YouTube channel, which is Adam LZ.
Yeah.
That guy's crazy.
Yeah. And yeah, I think we can cover all that sort of stuff. So if you have anything in mind, please sort of drop it on the comments, either on these will, I think as soon as we've got it all sorted, will be up on Facebook and on YouTube. The link will be to YouTube, but you can comment on either or. And yeah,
we're trying to do more coverage at events that we go to. So I had to figure out how to do that because I think we all have different things. Because I've got my page,
you're judging
my Instagram, and then you've got and the Team Red Stage stuff, and you've got Greg Merriman and your own sort of personal thing, and this. And so trying to split up all the content will be interesting.
Yeah, and I think our main goal is our personal journeys will be shared on our personal stuff, and then our general viewpoint of the event and of trying to help others put themselves out there who aren't so comfortable with doing some of that themselves, and sort of help some of the event promoters put their message out there further. We'll do through this channel.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll try and work out a topic for next week, and we will catch you guys in episode 3. If you've enjoyed it, please, let us know that you're enjoying it so that we keep doing it. Share it where you can share it. It will go a long way for us we are motivated to keep it going and to give ourselves as a Australian drift community a platform and actually start spreading some word about us. So if you're sort of passionate about the same thing, it'd be great to see some support from the community. We're just 2 dudes doing it from our homes. So yeah, that's it.
Sounds good.
All good.
All good.
All right. See you guys. Oh, we're gonna do our high five.
Yeah. Where is it?
Where am I?
Oh, hang on. It's back here. Now you got to go back. So what can you actually see? You can't actually see this at all.
I can see them. I can't see because you've got the split screen. I don't have the split screen.
Oh, okay.
I can see the white line that's like the split in the mirror, like there.
So
and I'm on the line.
You need to go further back towards the door, because you're too close.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah. And then I can't see you now.
Oh.
That's it. Okay. But yeah, your arm needs to go further back. Okay, now go close to the mirror. Closer. It's gonna look there, just there. So
are we touching?
Yeah, you're a bit too far. A tiny bit too far now. Too far back now. That's it. There. Okay.
Is that us touching though?
That's it, yeah.
So we've got to move back a little bit and then high five.
Yeah.
All right. 3, 2, 1. All right.
Okay.
This was a long one, but I hope you guys made it through it, and we will catch you guys in the next one.
Okay. Cool.
Bye, guys.
See ya.